presentation before we begin the comments.
Excellent.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Board Members, Superintendent Dr. Smith, colleagues, and community. Can you all hear me okay first? All right, good. Okay. So this is our second and final public hearing on the superintendent's proposed FY2026 budget. So I'm going to try to go through this quickly. I have a couple of updates to also tell you about. So again, this budget addresses the superintendent's 5 priorities. I'm not going to read those. We operate through 5 funds. The general operating fund, which is our largest fund, it finances the day-to-day operations of the district. We have our special revenue funds. This is where we have our legally restricted funds, such as our federal grants or any other grant that comes with any restrictions that we, how we spend the money. Capital projects funds, this is where we put all of our capital projects, building expenses, renovations, any equipment that we purchase, vehicles, school buses. For the enterprise fund, this is for the acquisition and maintenance of school district facilities and services, which are entirely or predominantly self-supporting by user charges. That would be our performing arts center, our print shop, things of those are the 2 things I can think of that we do that are considered enterprise funds. And then for the first time, we have a debt service fund because we did issue debt last year, and just recently, last week, we closed on the latest bond. We will have some interest payments and principal payments over the next fiscal year. The general fund, as I stated, is the largest of all the funds. It finances our day-to-day operations, which includes salaries and benefits for our personnel, our employees, and 88% of that budget is used for salaries and benefits for our teachers, counselors, media specialists, parapros, and other personnel. The remaining funds are used to fund the operations, which includes our textbooks, instructional resources, utilities, fuel for transportation, and other services that we have to obtain for the operation of the district. I want to talk a little about our text digest compared to last year. Our 2025 preliminary digest increased by about 7%. So last year was 12 million. The net M&O digest was 12 million. This year's 12 billion. I'm sorry, not 12 million, 12 billion. And this year's 12.9 billion, almost 13 billion. And we're projecting to collect $251 million in tax revenue this year based off of that. This shows a comparison of our millage rate and our digest values as it relates to other school districts. So Clayton County, we have about 52,000 students. In the closest school district to us around that same size as Atlanta. You can see that our net digest is at the bottom is 12.6 billion compared to theirs at 48 billion. What that means is for each 1 mil in taxes that we assessed, we generate $12.6 million per 1 mil, whereas Atlanta generates 48.5 million. And also their millage rate is set at 20.5, ours is at 19.6. I believe it's been there for the last 2 or 3 years. Some of the other districts in the area, you can see DeKalb, their millage rate is 23.08. They generate $39 million for 1 mil. So when we're looking at our neighboring schools and some of the things that they're able to do from a financial perspective, a lot of it has to do with the amount of revenue that they're able to generate, their tax base is a lot larger than ours. We have the second lowest tax base, with Fayette being the lowest. What did I do? All right, and this, the millage rate, as I spoke a few seconds ago, 19.6 mils is the proposed millage rate. That's been our millage rate for the last 2 years. Prior to that, it was up to 20 mils for a few years. It had dropped down for 3 years to 19.095, and prior to that, it was predominantly at 20 mils, but we are proposing to leave it at the 19.6 mils for this year. So the proposed general fund budget, we have a projected beginning fund balance of $160 million for July 1. Our projected revenues is $728,750,901. Projected expenditures, $740,586,759, and that leaves our revenues under our expenditures of $12.2 million, which will leave a projected ending fund balance of June 30th of next year of $147.7 million. The general fund revenue comprised of local property taxes, other local taxes, state funding, federal funding, and some other local grants as our state grants. So we're anticipating $728,750,901 in revenue. That's what we anticipate bringing in. Of that, 59% of that is state funding, 36% of it is local property taxes. Those are our two largest funding sources of funds that we receive. On the expenditure side, if you recall, I stated that salaries and benefits are our largest expenditures. That's shown here. We have a total anticipated expenditures of $740 million. The salaries at $427.5 million, benefits $209 million, and then the remaining objects there. And as you can see again on the chart, the salaries and benefits are the largest percentage of the expenditures. Some of the things that's included in this budget, we had an increase in TRS this year from 20.78 to 21.91%. We do get some funding from the state for our certified people. They would take care of a good portion of that. So the increase is actually $12.7 million. We will have to fund $4.1 million of that for all of our classified staff and for some of the certified staff that are not funded by the state. Also, we had an increase in the classified health insurance contributions. It increased to $20,040 per year per employee. That's going to cost us $11.9 million. We do receive funding for all of our certified staff from the state, but our classified employees, the district has to pay that full increase. We don't receive any funding from the state. But the numbers that I've discussed includes a $1,500 one-time payment to all full-time employees. And also, we've added $750 for the part-time employees. I think the last meeting, the board asked if we were doing anything for the part-time. So if the board adopted this budget as presented with the $1,500 one-time payment, it would also include a $750 one-time payment for part-time. It includes the Student Employment Services Division. I left it on here, but I took the funding off because Dr. Smith and staff have discussed it, and the leadership team has decided we're going to move this under CTAE. So we will need minimum funding for that. And then the board did ask last time if I had new positions in here, and I misspoke. We did have a new positions for the Early Learning Center staff, for principal for the full year, and I think the remaining staff is for half a year. And then today we added a position for fine arts. This shows the all funds, the anticipated revenue for all funds. The total would be $1,490,438,412. This is for all funds. It's all the funds that we spoke of earlier, the 5 funds. This would be the revenues for that. The expenditures by object for all funds, salaries and benefits, again, is the largest portion of that. The total expenditures is $1,504,246,239. And I'm not sure why the pie chart is showing up like that, because it didn't look like that on the computer screen earlier, so I apologize for that. The proposed budget, as it was originally presented with the $1,500 one-time payment, you can see the projected beginning fund balance for each fund. You can see the projected revenues for all funds. For each individual fund, they total the $1.4 billion, $1.5 billion. And then the projected expenditures is shown by fund also. When you see the revenues over or under expenditures, it's $11.8 million for the general fund and $1.9 million for the enterprise fund, for a total use of fund balance from all funds of $13.8 million.
Excuse me, Ms. Bivens, let
Yes.
me make certain that I completely inform the audience that you reflected a one-time $1,500 payment, but I just want the audience to know that we made several recommendations to the board for their consideration beyond just the $1,500, some steps and some other variations that we thought would be something that they can consider. So I don't want the board to think that that was just one option.
So when I finish this, I have on my multi-year projection that I did, it shows two of those options that we spoke with the board about last week, that most of them seemed agreeable to. So I will discuss that in a few minutes, once I get there. Yes,
I'm sorry. Is it okay if I, yes. Since Dr. Smith did bring it up, I was going to wait till the end. I had my light on, but really quickly, could you repeat before we get too far ahead on page 7, the slide number 7? Because I know sometimes it's muzzled with the microphone out there that you're talking on. Can you please say it loudly and clearly so everyone will hear that student employment service division? Tell us what's going to happen and how it's going to be absorbed. I know we're going to hear some more tonight at the actual board meeting.
Yes,
as to
ma'am.
how it's going to look up under
This slide?
CJT. Yes, ma'am.
okay, yes, ma'am. So I stated that I included the Student Employment Services Division on here because it is a new program for next year. However, if you remember, we had $1.4 million on there last year with $1 million coming from the fund balance. So staff has collaborated and worked through to see how we could still provide this service not at that cost. So it has been moved under CTAE is what I was advised when we spoke with Dr. Young last week. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bivens, and you also mentioned some positions that are now, you mentioned, can you repeat that, please?
Certainly, yes, ma'am. So there are some positions for the Early Learning Center that's going to be coming on board, not during the next fiscal year, but the following fiscal year. So as we do with most new schools, we staff them with the leadership team and some clerical positions. So this budget includes a principal, an assistant principal, really the principals for the full year, the assistant principal, I think it's a counselor and a custodian, or is it I got it right, yes. Counselor and a custodian for half the year of next fiscal year, because the school will be opening in fiscal year 27. And then a fine arts position has been included also.
Ms. Haney?
If you recall the first budget hearing, and then when we did the tentative adoption, it included a $1 million use of fund balance for that program. That has been removed, and we're moving the program under it's going to be absorbed by CTAE. Some external funds.
I'm still getting muffled. Can you repeat that again, please?
On the Student Employment Division, am I too close to it? Is this
Is
this better?
A little better.
This better? Okay, I was too close. All right, so the Student Employment Services Division. Previously, we had a $1.4 million amount on here with $1 million coming from fund balance. CTAE, Dr. Young and staff they collaborated and worked together, and they're going to be able to absorb that under CTAE and not have that $1 million cost. And we also, as Dr. Smith mentioned, we do have some external funding from, and I think one source is from Delta and some other funding to help offset the cost of that program.
Ms. Baker?
While you're still there, could you explain what the fine arts position, please?
And I had to ask Dr. Smith or someone from Teaching and Learning to help me with that. That is if I recall, it's a district-wide band director to, and Dr. Smith, can you, Ms. Auburn, do you have that information? Thank you.
As we've made investments in athletics, we want to make certain that we are equitable and ensuring that we try to boost our band programs across the districts. We want to kind of mimic what some of the other districts do by way of having a centralized band person that kind of oversees and help manage and support all of the various band programs at the high schools. But we're also looking to implement a elementary and a middle school band program at some point that we'll be asking this person to oversee as well.
Thank you.
We
Okay, you
already have band at the middle school level, so is it really at the
Marching
elementary
band.
level? Marching
Yes.
band is, say, at the middle school level would be the same. Don't we already have someone that oversees that?
No.
There aren't lead teachers. Is there anybody from fine arts that are not lead teachers?
Is Dr. Bowie here?
All right,
Not to this degree, no.
let's move on with the public hearing, and we'll have that discussion as we get into our board meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so the next 3 slides are gonna be our multi-year projections. So we spoke with the board, we had a lot of options. And I think last week, when I met with the majority of you one-on-one, we kind of narrowed it down to 1. The first I'm gonna talk about, the first one is the $1,500 one-time payment. That's the original option, option 1, which is a recommendation. This slide shows what our projection looks like, how it impacts our fund balance over the next 5 years. This assumes, again, a 7% increase in our digest, as well as a 3% increase in state funding, because we've actually gotten a little bit more than 3%, but we were conservative with that. We've also had experienced a little more than 7%. We usually 8 to 10%, but we were conservative, used 7%, went with the lower number. So that's the assumptions on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, beginning in 2027 forward, we did use the 3% increase assumption for salaries, benefits, and operations all the way across there. So as you can see, for this fiscal year, we would use $11.8 million of our fund balance if we did the $1,500 one-time payment. Next year, though, we would have a $4.8 million increase in 27. 28 would be $12 million, $20 million in 29, $29 million in 2030. So what that would allow for us to do, in addition to the 3% we already have included in there in our assumption for increases, would allow us to look at some other salary enhancements. I know we've talked about looking at a comp study. So if we did that, we would need funding to implement that. So that would give us a little room, because our revenues would exceed our expenditures by that amount on that line where it says revenues over or under expenditures.
So this is under the assumption that we do a 3% COLA.
Just a 3%, whether it's a COLA, and if we do a step is on average 2.5 to 3%, depending on where you are.
Is this projection a COLA and a step?
No, it's just a 3%. So
Just
we
the
can
COLA.
choose one or the other.
I mean, yeah, just the COLA.
Yes, sir, just a 3%.
Just the COLA.
Yes.
And we would be at a fund balance of 14 million in 2030.
Yes, sir. So if you look at where it says revenues over and under the third line from the bottom for each year,
Yep.
that's how much revenue we would have over expenditures.
Got it.
So in 2027, we would have an excess of 4.8 million revenues under these assumptions. In 2028, 12.1 million, 2029, 20.3, and 2030, 29.5. And again, that's if we only did the 3%, which could come in the form of a COLA or a step.
So let me be clear here.
Mhm.
On the top of this, I see $1,500 one-time payment.
Yes.
Is this projection for the 3%, or is this based off of a $1,500 one-time?
So fiscal year 2026, that amount includes the $1,500 one-time payment.
All right, so they would get $1,500 plus they would be receiving the 3% COLA.
No,
All right, so
2026
all
is
right.
the $1,500 one-time payment.
Gotcha.
Moving forward, we have included a 3% increase on the base salary
Moving forward.
moving forward, yes, each year. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
So, Ms. Bivens,
Yes.
sorry. So is this the option where we're discussing where you broke it down and you did a percentage of the top percentile who would receive if we did the 1,500 versus doing it the other way? That they would receive more this way? Is this the option?
So when we looked at
And if it
it,
is, will you please kind of explain to them the logic?
yes, ma'am, I didn't bring it with me. And so when we looked at a 3% increase, we looked at our employees that made $50,000, that would be a $1,500 increase. Anybody below that, it would be a less than $1,500 increase per year if we did a 3% increase across the board. So we kind of landed on 1,500 because if you use 1,500 and apply that to calculate the percentage, the lower the pay, the higher the percentage would be. So I'm going to talk about that on the next slide when we talk about the next option, option 2, is to do a $1,500 increase to the salary.
All right, before you move, I'm going to take Ms. Goree, then I'm going to take Ms. Baker, and then you can get back to your
Okay.
presentation.
Actually, I don't really have a question. My question to the chair is, if this is a presentation, isn't this also a part of the agenda?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I was just going to ask if it's a hearing, can we hear her presentation and then allow the people that are signed up to speak, and then if we have questions, could we go to that under the agenda?
You got it. Ms. Baker, let me let you finish
Thank
it out. You got it.
Okay.
You're going to finish your presentation
sir.
without any lights going on, all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this slide shows if we did a $1,500 increase to everyone's salary. That we would use $16 million. If you look in the FY 2026 column, that would require use of $16 million of our fund balance. Next year in 2027, and again, the same assumptions from the first slide, the 3% increase. We would use about $10.2 million in year 2027, 2028, $3.3 million, and then 2029, we would see an excess revenues of 4.4, and then 13.1 in 2030. This is if we do the if we do a $1,500 increase, which would be a permanent increase. And to address the question that Madam Board Member asked, excuse me, about the percentage increase, when you do the calculations, I looked at, I think starting at $25,000 up to $200,000. So a person that makes $25,000 a year, if we gave them a $1,500 increase, that would be a 6% increase for them. That would be a 6% salary increase. The person at the high end, $200,000 salary, would be a 0.8% increase. So it would be less than a 1% increase. So the higher you go in the salaries, the lower the percentage increase is with the flat $1,500 increase to everybody's salary. So any questions about that? Oh, we said we were going to wait for questions. I'm sorry. And then the last one was one that Dr. Smith had recommended on Friday, I believe. It was the $1,500 increase plus a $1,000 one-time incentive payment. For this year, we would have to use $22.8 million of our fund balance. But next year and the following year, the amounts would be the same because that one-time $1,000 payment would not be included in that, only the $1,500 increase. So the numbers are the same for the next 5 years for use of fund balance. Okay. So under the $1,500 option, one-time payment, we have a total budget of $1,504,246,239. With the $1,500 increase to salary, the total budget will be $1,508,539,646. And then the third option with the same $1,500 salary increase and the $1,000 one-time incentive payment, it will be $1,515,144,041. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. This just shows some remaining dates. We have the final adoption. If we don't do it tonight, I do want to, we had talked about last week that we're doing a special call meeting on Friday because June 1st is the last day that the teachers wanted to get out of their contract without cause, but because it's on a Sunday, it will be June 2nd. So you could also do this meeting if you wanted to wait on June 2nd as well. I just want to give you those dates so you would have that information as well. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Bivens. We will now go to public participation. Prior to public participation, I'd like to read a statement. The Clayton County Board of Education welcomes public participation and will hear any interested individuals pursuant to the guidelines outlined policy BCBI. Members of the public will not be allowed to discuss individual personnel issues or confidential student matters. Speakers must identify themselves and topics before speaking. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak, and time may not be yielded from one speaker to another. Board members will not respond to comments from speaker. The chairman may respond as appropriate. Issues requiring possible action by the board may be added to future agendas. Issues that may need to be addressed by the administration will be duly noted. Abusive language and/or personal attacks will not be permitted. My first person for tonight that will be speaking is Mr. Sean Bennett. Sean Bennett. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. How you doing today?
Not bad.
All right. So before I start, I just want to make sure that I understood it right. Just introduce myself and what I'm talking about. Okay.
Can you bring that mic a little closer here?
Is this better?
It's better.
All right. Hey, y'all. Nice to meet y'all. My name is Sean Bennett, and I am a parapro at Rexville Middle School. I'm here to talk about the salary. So basically, I make $25,142.70 per year. After taxes, it's $21,827, which has a net of $1,679 per month. If we were really to get into the nitty gritty before taxes, I would make $12.09 per hour based on the 52 weeks, 40-hour per week work scale. Based upon this information, do y'all really think y'all can survive off of this in Clayton County? The average rent for a studio or one-bedroom apartment is $1,000 or more, but for this sake, we'll say $1,000. The living expenses for an apartment, which includes lights, water, garbage, and renter's insurance, all cost $186. For personal expenses, which includes food, car insurance with no note, gas, internet, clothing, and health insurance, runs me along $967. All the stated items are low-end, budget-friendly prices. If we add it all up together, the apartment expenses, and personal expenses, it comes to a grand total of $2,153 a month. I'm $474 in the hole because somehow we don't have the budget to pay people a livable wage. Mind you, this doesn't include entertainment, other necessities for your home, buying things for your students, and most importantly, being able to save for future endeavors. Now, also keep in mind, I'm a single person with no children. Most of my coworkers have a bachelor's or multiple degrees, and on top of that, they have children. How much more do you think they have to shovel out so they can feed and clothe their children properly? This is a full-time job taking up 8 hours of the day, which means we should be able to have a livable wage. Yes, I can leave and go to a better county. However, I don't want to. I believe in Clayton County and their mission, but it's hard to believe in a place that can't pay properly. I love my school, my colleagues, and the children. They have given me the best work experiences I could ever ask for. But I'm always window shopping, better place to go because I and many other people have to survive. Isn't it the employer's job to keep up with the changes in wages and the rise in the cost for the economy? Isn't it also the employer's job to take care of their employees? To really take care of us, we need to be paid properly. The small incentives, while appreciated, aren't cutting it. I'd also like to address something that was said at the webinar. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but she said that we should not have to be incentivized to work, that our incentive was to work and support the children. However, the ultimate reason for working is to make a living. And when you're struggling to make a living, your ability to support the kids properly becomes compromised. No one should have to come up here and ask to get paid more. No one should have to work multiple jobs to support themselves if they're already working a full-time job. I invite you to come down or just think about becoming a para, bus driver, janitor, or lunch staff, all the while getting pulled to do many different things. If all your support staff were to act their wage, many doings within this county wouldn't get done. I know that there are some people who I think I should become more educated to get a better job. However, I'm already in school to pursue becoming a teacher, which takes a lot of time. In the meantime, I am dedicated to CCPS for 40 hours per week, doing my job and whatever else I'm tasked to do. And if it wasn't for my family, I wouldn't be able to take care of myself properly. Are you willing to ensure that parapros, bus drivers, janitorial, and other support staff are offered a livable wage in Clayton County Public Schools? I implore you to take a glance inward and revisit how your classifieds are paid so we can become a greater district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Next, I got Ms. Mahika Smoot. Did I get the last name right this time?
Yes, you
Oh.
did. Good evening, Dr. Smith, Mr. Straker, board, community members, and all other district employees. I'm Micah Smoot. I'm the president of the Clayton County Education Association, and I'm here to speak about the budget. It would have been nice if this new proposed budget and these items could have been released to the budget to the public so we could properly prepare for our questions. But with that not being done, I'm going to do the best that I can. One of the things that I want to say is, are we really committed to building a better tomorrow today? I wore my shirt on purpose. Are we committed to building a better tomorrow today? Because if we are, then we have to be committed to retaining and attracting highly qualified teachers. Now, Dr. Smith already said that he put several options out to the board. And so if I hear Dr. Smith correctly, don't put it on him. Don't put off for tomorrow what we can do today. Putting off a 3% COLA for next year and just doing a $1,500 stipend is almost a slap in the face. Because with the prices of everything going up, it is time for you all to consider your employees. This young man came up and told you in very specific terms how he's living. And that he's not the only one living in this way. Now, I looked at the fund, I looked at the balance, and if we look at the budget from last year to this year, there's about 20 million. Just from me taking out 3 line items, I found 20 million in the budget that from things that you all had either cut in half, zeroed out, whatever. We can find the money if we need to, and you need to. So I'm going to put it on our board members to consider your employees. Are you really about the business of children? Are we really about retaining and attracting highly qualified teachers and professionals in this district? It feels like that's not really our priority. Now, if we have money in coffers and we have money in our savings account, and I know you all don't call it a savings account, it's time for you to use that money if needed. Now, I found it in the actual budget from moving around things that you all moved around, that you moved out. But again, we put money where we want to put money, and it's time for you to put money in your employees. I did hear about the Student Employment Division, that it was being absorbed by CTAE. My question is, did their line item increase? Are they absorbing the cost because they also absorbed a bit more money in order to absorb that cost? I can't research that because I didn't have that information, but that is a question. And if you want to know specifically the line items that I was able to find $20 million in, line item 178, graduation coach, decreased by this year, $5,872,399. You decreased line item 175, social worker salary, by $2,000, $292,739. And then this line item, 199, other salaries, decreased by $12,257,463. That was only 3 line items, and that was a total of $20,422,601.
Unfortunately, Ms. Moon, I have to stop you
That's
because
fine.
we have to move on to.
And I thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Okay, lastly, I have a Miss Jennifer Panting Smith. I need to read her statement. Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Jennifer Panting Smith, and I've proudly worked as an ASL interpreter for Clayton County Public Schools since 2006. I've also been a Clayton County resident since 2008, and I am currently the only interpreter who lives in the county. My own child graduated from Jonesboro High School in 2022 and received the Superintendent's Award. So I am not just an employee, I'm deeply invested. I'm a deeply invested community member. I left a corporate position at Delta Airline hoping for more meaningful work and long-term growth in education. Unfortunately, that change came with a pay cut. Since then, I've watched 4 highly qualified interpreters leave Clayton to take better paying jobs in neighboring counties like Gwinnett and DeKalb. Since COVID, retention has only become more difficult as interpreters now have remote options and more flexibility elsewhere. In 2018, the Georgia Professional Standards Commission raised the bar, requiring interpreters to have a 4-year degree and a 3.5 or higher on the EIPA. While we continue to meet these requirements, our salaries have not increased to reflect the added demand and or qualifications. We're no longer just interpreting for students in classrooms. We've been called to interpret for adults, platform interpretation, graduation performance interpretations, and during the pandemic, we shift to remote and video interpreting, skills that require additional training. For the 2022-2023 school year, I was named District Leader Interpreter, tasked with hiring support and staffing for the new department, while I successfully brought in new interpreters with the support of my coordinators. This role came with no pay increase. It remains difficult to keep interpreters in the district due to inadequate compensation for years of verified experience and lack of professional learning targeted to our unique role. Tonight, we respectfully ask the board to increase the interpreter budget to hire and retain qualified interpreters, offer retention bonuses, and extend the pay step to 25 years, provide salary increase based on verified work experience, or our current step, fund professional development specific to interpreting, not just general staff GD. Thank you, Ms. Panting Smith. And that concludes the comments for this evening's public hearing. We'll close the public hearing now and move into our regular called board meeting. So I'm going to call back the meeting that we started at 5:06, and we'll start following that agenda.